Welcome back to another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. This is THI publisher Andrew Jones, and the topic today, in the midst of a 4-0 football season with plenty to discuss about the football Tar Heels, we're going to deviate a little bit from that and talk Carolina basketball because Monday, the Tar Heels formally started practice. College basketball across the landscape started 6 weeks before the season opener when the Tar Heels take on Radford. Later tonight, the ACC will finally, and I mean finally, release the conference schedule for men's and women's basketball. There was a day not too long ago when that would come out in early August. Then it got pushed to the later end of August, and the first week of September. And now here we are a week before October, and we're going to finally get the ACC schedule. Jacob and I will have a podcast later tonight on that once it comes out. The topic right now, though, is simply the fact that Carolina basketball has formally started practice. The 2-man workouts and the 2 hours or however much it is that players get with assistant coaches on individual drills, all that's gone. It's now full throttle stuff. And in less than 6 weeks from this past Monday, the Tar Heels open the season against Radford. Quick reminder, this drop is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. We'll have a word from them in a few minutes. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what this team looks like. And I know that I approach things different than a lot of people watching or listening to this because you guys are fans. So you have an emotional attachment, you have an emotional build within that kind of gets you to the opener, gets you to the season, and you contemplate a lot of things a little bit differently than I might, or some of the people on my staff might, because I look at it strictly from a journalistic standpoint. And because of that, I get really excited. All of you know, or most of you know, that I look at the football season as a book, and each game is a chapter. And I love that book, whether it veers off to the right when they win a bunch of games, if veer off to the left, they lose a bunch of games. I always find every week fascinating and information filled. And I love the idea of mining that information as much as possible. Basketball is a little different because the schedule is not as regimented as it is in football, but I still like to look at things in terms of months. You got the month of November, you got the month of December, January, February, and then of course March. And every once in a while, North Carolina is successful enough that it enters into to April. That was the case 2 years ago when the Tar Heels got to the national championship game and nearly won. The same group that a year later, for the most part, didn't even make the tournament. So I think there's a lot of questions about the program, about this team going into the season. But from a personnel standpoint, I also think there are quite a few answers. I'm going to hit on those here in just a minute. Before that, let's go ahead and hear a word from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy.
Yes, guys, we are so excited to be partnered with Underdog Fantasy. And we decided to partner with Underdog because it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry right now as well. And Underdog Fantasy has so much to offer, including their Pick'em game. And in Pick'em, you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. It's so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. And you can 20x your money by going just 5 for 5. They also have a Best Ball Mania. If you think you know football, you need to check this one out. This year's Best Ball Mania has $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. So sign up today with the promo code HEEL, HEEL, and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with that promo code HEAL to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms do apply. And if you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. Back to the show.
Okay, the biggest question mark I think a lot of people have, and I do too, is where is Hubert Davis as a coach in year 3? I said from the very beginning, I said it when they were struggling in his first year. I said it when I was on my way to New Orleans for the Final Four his first year. We're not going to know a ton about Hubert as a coach until he gets through year 3. So year 3 is here. And I think one of the really cool things from the way I view things when I cover a program is what we're going to learn about Hubert this year. He didn't ultimately have the depth his first year, so they had the Iron Five. That wasn't so much a choice. It was how things worked out. Remember, he had Anthony Harris and Dawson Garcia in the rotation, and then Garcia left. Harris became ineligible, and then he was stuck with what he had, basically a 6-man rotation with Puff Johnson coming off the bench. Last year, he played some of the young kids early on, and then for whatever reason, didn't play them more. And I do think there was a significant drop-off from the 5th starter to everybody else. Puff Johnson was occasionally productive, not consistently productive. The rest of the players on the bench, other than a couple flare-ups from Jalen Washington, just didn't produce a whole lot. So there was a sizable drop-off. That's not the case this year. It shouldn't be the case unless R.J. Davis, Armando Bacot, Elliot Cadeau, Harrison Ingram, and I guess probably Cormac Ryan starting lineup, and maybe throw in Jalen Withers, unless they're just so much better than everybody else. And they might be, but I do think that the other guys are good enough that you're going to have to play bench. Seth Trimble's going to have to get on the floor. Jalen Washington's going to have to get on the floor. James Okwonkwo is going to have to get on the floor. I mean, there are bench guys there. There is depth. There should be a rotation. So we'll see how Hubert handles that. And then we'll know in February whether Hubert's a guy who likes to play his bench or not. So that's one question that will be answered. Another question that will be answered is, how does Hubert bring a team along? He's got a lot of new bodies. 4 scholarship guys back from last year's team, 2 who played big roles. In fact, RJ and Armando are the only 2 scholarship players left from the team that played in the national championship game 18 months ago. Think about that. So Hubert's got a new roster. He's got some guys that can play. He's got some guys that can handle multiple roles. He's got 5 players on the roster who were captains of their college teams last year. He's got 5 guys on the roster who in college have shown that they can handle the ball in end of clock situations and either score or find teammates. Elliot Cadeau would be the 5th, but he hasn't yet done that in college, but he will before long. There are options. There are options defensively. There are options what he can do offensively. There's no need to run a bunch of set plays with this group. So will he? This team should run more. They should get in transition more. And that begins with defense and rebounding. Are the Tar Heels a better defensive rebounding team than they were last year? Very good last year, but they have a chance to be dominant this year. I love what Withers can bring rebounding from the 4. I think Ingram is a better rebounder than what he's shown. You get a guy like Ryan. Paxton Wojcik's a dude that he had 13 rebounds against Michigan State last year, had 8 at Northwestern. He can rebound from the 3 spot. So is Elliot Cadeau a rip and run guy? There are some attributes this team has that leads me to believe that they should play a little bit more like Roy's teams than what we see from Hubert's teams. And I'm not comparing Hubert to Roy because I don't think that's fair because he's a different coach. He's going to do things differently. But I think we would all agree that some of those approaches make a lot of sense if you have the right personnel. Last year, maybe they didn't have the right personnel to run a ton. Maybe they didn't have the right personnel to play more freelance on offense than they did. This year, I think that's different. So how does Hubert handle all those things? I think so much of what this team does will depend on the way Hubert approaches the season and then builds and adds layers during the season. Roy Williams was a genius at adding layers, at improving his team. What you saw in November was not what you saw in February. The Tar Heels the last 2 years were a little bit more in February like what you saw in November. There wasn't as big a difference. The light went on at the end of the season 2 years ago, and Hubert was the right guy, the right temperament to help guide that run. But that run was just a run. It was just a month. So the other 8 months, 8.5 months have been different. So I will say this. There are people who are still critical of Hubert, which I don't think is justified anymore because the new season's here. Judge moving forward, not looking backward. I will also say that based on conversations I've had with people, if North Carolina can be North Carolina with Hubert Davis at the helm, that is best case scenario because he's a wonderful man. The way he runs his program is the way you want a program run. It would certainly mirror in many respects the way Dean Smith went about things. And that is very important to a lot of people, especially to Hubert Davis, who tries to honor Dean and Roy every day. And I also think that the story, the unfolding story, and a coaching career is always unfolding. The unfolding story of Hubert Davis could be a glorious one and a terrific one to tell, and a terrific one for fans to read and watch and hear about if they have a lot of success with him at the helm. So year 3 is underway for him. This is going to be a telltale year as far as learning about where he is as a coach. And I think he's got a team with a ton of potential. I'll say right now, I think they're going to be really good. They're going to be an NCAA tournament team, probably going to be a Sweet 16 type of team. Now, how much better than that do they get? I think the potential is there to be better than that. But a lot of that's going to depend on how Hubert brings them along. And I'm fascinated. I'm excited to see what he does. And I am looking so forward to covering every game, except I won't be in the Bahamas because of the conflict with football, but I'll be at the rest of the games. And I will enjoy telling this story and chronicling this story as it unfolds. Carolina fans have a reason to be optimistic. I sense that fans who were angry and disillusioned and bewildered 6 months ago aren't really that anymore. I think there's a lot of optimism. I think people are pretty excited about the additions made. I think the additions Hubert made reflect how he views a roster more than what he's had his first 2 years. A lot of that was out of his control, but it's not now. So 6 weeks from now, actually 5 weeks and 6 days, 5 weeks and 6 days, Carolina takes the court against Radford in an official game. It's going to be here before you know it. The overlap with football and basketball is here. And of course, we will have a ton of coverage on both. UNC Basketball Media Day is October 6th, the day before the Syracuse football game. ACC basketball tip-off is in late October. So we're going to have a ton of stuff for you guys. And it's going to be a lot of fun building up because build-ups are fun. They're great in football. And the difference between football and basketball is in football, you lose early, it's a big letdown. You're like, season's done, even though it's not always done. In basketball, you have plenty of time to recover. And that's what's going to be fun about watching this because they're going to lose some early games. So how do they recover? I can't wait, guys. I know y'all can't wait. So I'll tell you what, let me know either through Twitter DM, on Twitter, or on Facebook, or on our YouTube, or on our message boards on our site, TarHeelIllustrated.com. What are you most looking forward to? What has you excited and anticipating right now, 6 weeks before the opener about this basketball team? Just one thing. Don't give me 2 or 3. One thing that has you looking at that calendar and knowing, wow, we're inside of 6 weeks now. Let me know what that is, and we'll have some fun with it. Go ahead and like this video. If you are excited about North Carolina basketball coming up, go ahead and like this video. If you think year 3 is a telltale year for Hubert, that we'll learn a lot about him. And go ahead and like this video if you are happy with the portal additions to the roster. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Make sure you share this video and hit the notification bell so you get updates every time we upload. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy once again for sponsoring us and being a terrific partner with Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm AJ. I'll see you tomorrow.